Hello and welcome. Welcome to another one of our GB Labs webinars. It is very nice for you to join us, and I'm hopefully going to cover quite a bit in a short space of time. I would like to use the presentation on our new product, Unify Hub, and doing it through GoToWebinar. I'm sure people who are familiar will know that there is a questions tab in your remote control, but if you are using it for the first time, if you just scan down, there is a little triangle that needs flipping down with questions, and you can pop things in there as we go along, and then we will attempt to answer them at the end. So let's get on and start talking about this fantastic technology. So we were developing technology for our core operating system, which would give it very powerful cloud integration, which is obviously the way forward for most storage. And when COVID-19 came along, we started to become aware that whilst we had developed a lot of it specifically for cloud, there was also this remote working situation that everybody was faced with. So we have developed quite a meaningful technology, which we'll go through now. So I'm going to take you back 15 years ago or thereabouts, when you would invest heavily in your video edit suite. There would be, extremely expensive bits of hardware, and you would then have creative people wanting to collaborate with you. You might want to back stuff up. Things like video typing and graphics, and the whole thing was done with removable hard drives, such as SCSI drives or Firewire or USB. Of course, this does work, and this is fondly called sneakernet. It's highly inefficient, slow. There's obviously a lot of data duplication going on. There's poor security involved. As in, nothing would be RAID protected. It would be, single individual drives that are obviously quite fragile, and it wouldn't be scalable. In fact, it was a complete pain in the bum, and that meant that we needed to move on to much more meaningful technology, which obviously GB Labs are very proud to produce. NAS central storage, and of course there is SAN central storage. But really, before we had these technologies, the idea of collaborating from a single point was obviously difficult, if not impossible. So this came along and it changed everything. We now had everybody connecting to one central place. We had a work in progress central set of data. So obviously very efficient to have one set of data that everybody can work from, but obviously it means that we can truly collaborate. In using RAID protected storage within NAS and SAN deployments, you are obviously able to provide good data security. In fact, we can take that very far with our Cloak DR technology, so that you have a shared storage that's extremely well protected. It is also highly scalable, or at least our platforms are very scalable, as I'm sure certain other manufacturers will attest to. So this is, by far and away, what we all agree is the way we work. Obviously, MAM and archiving and everything revolves around central storage, and it is one of the most important investments you can have. So I will go forward to present day, and unfortunately, present day is looking very similar to 15 years ago. Of course, the pieces of hardware have changed, and in fact, the central point of collaboration is really now the head office, where we were all quite happily sat and working around our shared storage with no issues. COVID then hit. There was a huge amount of fractured work groups, people sat at home, people wanting to work, people wanting to collaborate, and really there are a number of different ways of doing it, but most of them are slow, inefficient processes. In fact, USB drives are being used or have been used to bring stuff home, but of course when you start doing that, you are introducing multiple copies of your data In fact, if multiple users have the same data, the point that people want to then come back and bring stuff to the work in progress in the office, it becomes very difficult to know what goes in and what you keep, etc. So very similar in its disadvantages, slow data duplication everywhere, high risk of data loss, poor security, and of course it's not scalable. But it is, or was, the mess that most people were in when this hit, and it is something that we wanted to address with some meaningful technology. Now, of course, as I mentioned, there are various different ways of working remotely. In fact, a lot of people might tell you that the cloud has all the answers. Whilst the cloud has a lot of very important things that we can easily scale up and scale down, such as transcoding and rendering, it can also provide various different types of storage, so archive storage or even edit storage. But of course, anything that we do needs to be based in the cloud, because anything that is in a data center effectively in anywhere around the world is going to be an inefficient way of accessing or online editing, for example. It just wouldn't be possible. So I don't think that the cloud really has the answers for everybody, but as I say, it's a very important or key part of this technology and what we can do with it. So the Unify Hub itself. We see the technology really in two parts. You have a full suite of cloud integration tools, and on the other side, you have a specific remote working workflow. The Unify Hub is a conduit effectively between you and cloud endpoints or cloud services, but it is also a point of collaboration for your remote users and for your local users. So the first part of the cloud collaboration or cloud functionality is that the Unify Hub itself is capable of signing on to a variety of different cloud products, such cloud endpoints such as AWS S3, Backblaze B2, Dropbox for Business, generic S3, Google Drive, and Wasabi, which are our list of supported endpoints, etc., for this at this point in the release. But of course, we will be adding to that list with quite a lot of others. But essentially, the Unify Hub is the one that is logging in and mounting that storage. And once it has mounted that storage, there are a number of different things that it can do. So primarily, we will or do offer the cloud endpoints out as SMB shares on the local network. So to anybody sat on the local network or even sat remotely, when they're interfacing through the Unify Hub, they are able to mount and work with cloud endpoints just the same as they would with their normal NAS central storage. We can also present those cloud endpoints out to other devices. As I say, it can also be to the remote users working with the system, and SMB gives us quite a lot of additional functionality because SMB is a protocol we use throughout the core OS. It's obviously probably the most significant sharing protocol, certainly in terms of local sharing, and it gives us things like auditing and other types of monitoring that we can do and feedback. So SMB works extremely well. It also is user and group authenticated. So you can keep control of the access to your cloud endpoints through your Unify Hub rather than disclosing the individual credentials for each and every cloud provider that you have. The ability to mount the cloud endpoints and to be able to obviously mount its own storage, but even to be able to see other NAS storage means that we can have a single pane of glass of all of our storage assets. This makes total sense, and it means that we can do quite clever things in terms of workflow. The Core OS or the GB Labs Core OS supports things like automation and replication, and that means that we can start to use those with cloud endpoints in a fairly seamless way. One of the very cool things about the technology is when it's dealing with, when we are looking at cloud endpoints, there is disk cache available to the Unify Hub. And this comes in the form of high-speed SSD inside the appliance, and it would come in the form of the GB Labs storage, or the storage that you have within your GB Labs unit, and part of that would be partitioned off for this type of usage. That is obviously user configurable, and there are big advantages in using our platform to do this because it is designed and tuned to be able to do this, and you can specify the caching area to whatever degree you like. Now, the caching area offers some pretty good cost savings, because as you start to pull data down from the cloud, it's caching that data, which means that any subsequent requests from other users, whether they're on-premise or remote, will actually be served from the cache. And that means that we don't need to egress data repeatedly, saving money. We also save bandwidth in that we are not trying to pull down the same file multiple times from an external source. It's been done once, it's been cached, and from that point on, it will be intelligently served out to those users. Now, as it is served from the inbuilt SSD or the internal GB Lab storage, the experience of working with those files that are in the cache is very similar to working with high-speed NAS, which is obviously much quicker than trying to do it directly from the cloud. And this works the other way around as well, so that when we commit stuff back through the Unify Hub to that endpoint, we're not sat waiting for things to progress. It's written to the cache, and then it's subsequently migrated to the cloud endpoint, allowing us to carry on working and not hold our machine up watching progress bars. Now, the other part of the technology is that if you flip it around the other way, we are able to present our storage and, in fact, third-party storage out as cloud endpoints. And the way we do that is through the S3 protocol. The S3 protocol is or was designed specifically for long-range connections. It's a stateless protocol, which makes it very good for this type of usage. It is in fact probably the most common way of most things in the cloud talking to each other. So we are effectively giving our storage or third-party storage the ability to play with other cloud services. It will present itself as an S3 endpoint, which means that it could be seen as a virtual private cloud. It is obviously able to deal with the third-party storage, but as I said before, the size of that will be denoted by the internal capacity of the unit, whereas if you're using, say, the GB Lab storage, you can push a small amount or a huge amount of your storage towards doing this. Just to clarify as well, the S3 protocol is a protocol itself. Yes, it shares the S3 part with Amazon's AWS S3, which it was designed for, but this S3 sharing protocol is used by lots of other people as well, including us. So the S3 protocol actually makes a lot of sense for remote users as well. Not only, as I say, is it a stateless protocol, but is also bidirectionally synchronizing, or it will see data at both ends and make sure that they are perfectly in sync. We also wanted to, with the remote side, provide an experience something close to what you would expect in the office. And these days, certainly as the situation has been changing in various different countries, we are acutely aware that there is a hybrid usage here, in that one day you might be sat at home trying to work with your one set of work in progress data, and the next day you might be actually at the office. And we need to facilitate that so that you can effectively hot desk between your home and your desk at work without any issues, and allowing you to obviously carry on working without wasting any time. The remote working part of it, in terms of the client, is handled by our own Unify Hub Connect software. This is available for PC and Mac, and it is a way of accessing, obviously with authentication, your Unify Hub in your office. Now, we do recommend that you use a VPN to do that. It is obviously an access point. It can be controlled in various different ways, but the most simple is to put a VPN in place, and then you are working off a secure connection back to the office. You are mounting the storage or the workspaces from the Unify Hub remotely, so they'll pop up on your desktop and work as normal. But just in the same way as the Unify Hub in the office, the remote system is also capable of using cache, and that's something that we've done on purpose to ensure the user experience for the person sat at home is as close as we can get to what they would have in the office. Now, as you write to the cache, or as you write back to the office effectively, it will be cached very much similar to it as we were mentioning before. So you're not sat around waiting for it to commit data. It will commit it extremely quickly to the cache. And once it's on the cache, it will then migrate it to the office in the background. Anything that you've pulled down will be held in the cache as well, meaning that any further requests for that will come from the cache and not through your broadband connection. Now, obviously, if we were dealing with a large workspace, it would be quite painful to try to access everything in that workspace. Obviously, it would be cached as we're using it, but if it's a lot of data, it's going to be a lot of data being need to pull down initially to fill your cache, with things after that being much more quiet. But what we can do is we can take the cache drive to the office. We can use the Unify Hub Connect software in the office, even off a different computer, and we can fill that cache up, fully before we leave the office, so that when we go home and we connect to our remote computer, all of that will be pre-populated into the cache, and we can just get on and work. And therefore, we have this ability to hot desk, as I say, from the office to the home without issue. The external drive or internal drive that's dedicated to the cache does make a difference here. And I think it's important to say that if you were to use latest technology, USB-C with NVMe, which is something that we are imminently bringing to the market exactly for this purpose, you are able to reach speeds of 1,000 megabytes per second, which neatly is the same as 10 gig Ethernet. So if you are 10 gig Ethernet connected at work and used to that speed and need that speed for the type of work that you do, then when you get home, the external cache in this case will provide those levels of performance for you. So working with Unify Hub is automatic, it's seamless, and really for the remote user, we don't want them to think about it. I mean, if they're thinking about it, the technology isn't doing or isn't achieving what we want. We want this seamless hot desking, and we want the ability to work with the product to be as simple as possible. I've mentioned that there is an appliance. The appliance looks like this, which is a 1U. It has 8 SSDs inside it. Those SSDs can be sized to your requirements, and the hardware is all inside that one box. You even get a couple of 10 gig Ethernet ports on the back. The important thing about the appliance is that if you are choosing to use third-party storage with Unify Hub, you will need the appliance. If you are using your own storage and your own GB Lab storage, and you don't need to interact with third-party storage, then you can work with the software inside the product. So the client software is, in fact, we're going to see shortly, because I'm just going to play a short video. It's pretty simple to use, and then obviously we have the Unify Hub software, which sits either inside the appliance or inside your storage, and this would be most likely resident in your office. So I'm now going to play a video from my colleague Duncan Beattie, who has very kindly put together a quick run through of what the software looks like and what it's like to use, so that we can get some sense of what it looks like now. So I'll just move on to playing that.
The The first part of Unify Hub is locations, and these are cloud locations. Here you can see we have Amazon, Google and Wasabi, and an SMB share coming from another server. To add a location, we have a choice of these fantastic providers. Once we've added these locations in, we can then use them inside the CoreOS. We can go to our CoreOS in the background. We can go to File Manager, so we can see our mounted shares. We can go to our Amazon account, and in there you can see all of the files that are actually running in the cloud. We can also create workspaces. So Unify Hub gives you the option of Cloud Workspace, and this allows you to create a local share from a cloud account. So if we click in here, we've got the options of using some cloud accounts we've not yet made a share from. So here, Google, Wasabi and the SMB. The existing workspace we have though is the Amazon share. If I click on this and copy the path, go to my Finder, connect to server, it will then bring me up a connection to that cloud account, and I can see through my Finder over the network on SMB the contents of the Amazon cloud. I can copy files up and copy files back down again. Very, very easy to do. You can see here that we have 4 existing remote workspaces created, and we can also see which users are allocated to these remote workspaces. But for this demonstration, we're going to go and create a new remote workspace and then access it via the client. Add remote workspace. In here, we're going to go to the Unify Hub volume and choose a folder called Remote. Click Next. It's renamed it automatically with a small r to make sure it's compatible with the S3 protocol. Click Next. We can then choose our policies. We can choose read-only or read-write for the entire remote workspace and therefore any buckets inside. So the default policy will be read-write, but then we can also apply further bucket permissions. So let's go and add a couple of users, Duncan and Edit1 and Workflow, and then let's turn on the bucket permissions. So here we have 2 buckets. We can go and add, for the media, let's just add the Workflow user as read-write, and we can add in the editor as read-only. For the projects, let's select read-write for Workflow and read-write for editor. And we click Finish. So this will now create the remote workspace, and we will connect to this via the client in a minute. So here we are on the client workstation. Let's then go and add that Unify Hub server we were just working on. Let's call it Office. Put in the IP address of the server, or in fact the host name. Add the user and the password and click Create. This will connect to the Unify Hub at the other end and check which remote workspaces and buckets we have been given access to. So here we've got projects and media. So first of all, what I do is I want to change the cache location for both of them and make sure they're held on the external drive. So I click on Bucket Options and I can choose my cache location, and in this case we want my external drive and a folder called Cache. And let's do the same for projects. So let's mount these buckets now, and we can start working with them. And let's mount the media bucket as well. Now we can go to the file view, and this is important because if we look inside media, you see that we've got some files that are not yet cached down. Caching them allows us to work with them at full speed on the local disk. So let's go ahead and grab these 3 files and cache them. So this is going to copy into that hidden directory those files from the server. And you can see those files being brought down now. The real benefit of this is that we can then utilize those inside the timeline working at full speed. So let's grab those files and wait for them to come down. We also have the ability to be able to move data up to the server as well and work on full speed. So if we go into our media folder here, our remote workspace with the media bucket, perhaps we brought back some video files from location. We can copy those into that directory and immediately they'll copy in at full speed, and we could bring those files directly onto the timeline and start working with them. In the background, our Connect app is now pushing these back to the studio, back to the office for other users to be able to see and also cache. And those files are being uploaded in the background. So that's now been created, and we can then go and grab that media directly from here and straight onto the timeline. Those files are imported. We can play those back at full speed as if we were working in the office, and very, very flexible. So very easy to manage, very easy to work with. We can close that project down and save that, and you'll notice in the projects folder we then have our demo project and also our autosave file as well. So there you can see working with the Unify Connect app, incredibly simple.
Great. Thank you very much, Duncan. I don't know if it was clear fully from the video, but the process that Duncan was doing there of selecting things and adding them to the cache was a manual process. And as mentioned, we can also do this when we go to the office to preload our cache. But if we were to simply connect an empty cache device and start accessing the SharePoint from our desktop, it will start automatically filling up. So you can have this very, very simple. You can present at home the same mounts that you would have in the office. You can work with them in the same way. And certainly once they're cached in there, it is very difficult to see the difference. And I think that's probably the biggest compliment that we've had from users so far, is when they tell you that actually they don't really know that they're on the Unify Hub. They just know that when they're working at the office or working at home, it all works. They're working with the same set of files and they are able to collaborate. So I would like to just quickly look at a couple of the questions, if that's all right, and we'll go through some of the answers. I've been asked, what are the costs of running a Unify Hub? Well, we've looked at how it can save us money through the caching to avoid unnecessary egress. We've also talked about a device, rather an appliance, and the software being built in to our storage. If you are to utilize the functionality within our storage, which, as I say, there are lots of advantages of doing, there is an annual cost for doing that. If you buy the appliance with, obviously it's all integrated hardware and its capability to work with either our storage or third-party storage, you actually get a perpetual license. So it doesn't take that many years of usage on the appliance to start seeing some of the savings versus the annual cost of renewing that software license. So actually the Unify Hub appliance offers pretty good savings there. When is it available? It's actually available now. It's been in beta for quite a long time. It's out with customers and we have quite a few people out there using it and seeing the benefits from it already. How does it handle slow internet connections? Well, actually, this is a very good question. And actually, due to the S3 protocol not being fussy with the speed that it gets, you can operate off extremely slow connections. Now, obviously, pulling stuff down through those slow connections will be painful, but it will work. And obviously, if we've gone to the office and we've pre-populated our cache and we are sat at home on our slow broadband connection, then it will literally just be asking for things that it doesn't have or that have been added to the work in progress storage in the office. So there will be minimal amount of transactions going through the broadband connection, and most of your work, especially if you're an editor, coming from your cache and providing that same experience as you would have in the office. Just to highlight also what Duncan said in the video, the cache location is invisible. So there is no confusion from the user point of view in terms of which set of data do they use and do they delete from here or add to here or whatever. You literally mount it as a network share and you work with it, and that cache works in the background intelligently and quietly to give you, a very good performance experience. Does it work with all shared storage? To be honest, if it's a NAS, it's going to have SMB. It would be crazy not to have SMB. And so from that point of view, anything with SMB will connect to the Unify Hub appliance and can be shared out. It is also possible with certain SAN storages that they have a network head effectively presenting out regular share points, and if it does, then of course we can work with that as well. But the simple way of looking at it is if you can give us an SMB share point, the chances are we will be able to use the Unify Hub's great functionality with that storage. I think that's it for the questions, and we have reached the half-an-hour point. So as promised, I've tried to get through this as quick as possible. There is lots and lots more information. If you're interested in pricing or further deep dives into the technology, we can facilitate all of that. Please do let us know. So it leaves me now to thank you very much for your time, and hope you enjoyed it, and speak to you soon. Thanks very much. Goodbye.